Hey, it's Tom. We're going to have a look at using denoising in Corona 1.4. We have here a sample interior scene, and enabling denoising is very straightforward. All we need to do is come into our scene tab, and we can choose between only remove fireflies. If you don't want to do any denoising except remove those bright pixels, then that's the option to choose. More generally, though, you'll want to use full denoising. It has two parameters. Denoise amount varies between 0 and 1, and that you can adjust in the VFB after rendering. The denoise radius, however, you do have to choose before you render, and it basically determines how far in pixels the denoising looks in order to do its calculations. Higher values will result in greater denoising, but it will soften the image more, and you may start to lose more detail. Lower values will reduce the strength of the denoising, but will preserve more small details. The default is 1, and that's usually perfectly fine for most situations. And I'm going to leave the denoise amount set to 1 also, because I'm going to adjust that after I render. So I'm going to go ahead and start this off. And what I'm going to do is jump to when it's complete, and I'll show you the difference denoising makes in this image. Okay, and here's our image finishing up. I've left it at 40 passes. Normally you use a noise limit, but I've set it to 40 passes because I want to do exactly the same every time I render this, and I did want to leave some noise in the image so we could see denoising at work. I've also just used distributed rendering on this. So as the last pass finishes, it will move on to the denoising phase once it has gathered the information it needs from the distributed rendering nodes. And we can see as it's come together that there's definitely still some noise left in this image, which is what I want in this instance in order to demonstrate how the denoising works. Now it's gathering up the information from the nodes, and now it's beginning the denoising process. I'll note at this point that if you're rendering and you hit stop, it will stop rendering more passes, but will then go on to the denoising phase. If you hit cancel, however, then it will not only stop rendering the passes, it will also skip doing the denoising. So that's a difference in 1.4 from previous versions of Corona. Stop and cancel do two different things now. Stop stops the passes but does denoising. Cancel stops both the passes and the denoising. So here's our image. Denoising has been applied, and you can see it's actually looking very clean. Denoising has done a good job of taking that and tidying it up. It's fully adjustable after render. We just need to drag our spinner down, and you can see here's the image prior to denoising. And as I push this back up, it blends in the denoised image. And now this is pure denoising. Suggested values for this, often people find a value between 0.5 and 0.7 is most effective, where it will remove noise but not soften out any details. You may find that where you have small details, where you effectively have a texture which has noise in it, such as wood grain or concrete with bumps on it. When those very small fine details are present in a texture map, denoising may soften those up a little too much, and if you leave it set to a value of 1. It doesn't really seem to do any harm in this image. If we have a look at the rug texture in the wood, that's full denoising, and if I pull it back, I wouldn't say it's had an adverse effect on this texture, on these textures here, on the wood and on the rug. But that's how you can control it, and why you may want to control it in terms of adjusting the blending. Now I'm going to do another thing here, which is, let's say you want to apply different levels of denoising to different parts of the image. And perhaps, for the very reason we've spoken of, perhaps you do have something like a wooden or concrete floor where you're finding the denoising is too intense and removing too much detail, but you want a high level of denoising on flat surfaces like these walls. And that's achievable by using render elements. If we come into render elements, we can add a new render element, C Shading Beauty. That was added in 1.4, and I'll add that here. And you'll see that it actually has its own denoise amount. So I am going to set this one to 0, and I'm just going to rename it Denoise Beauty No Denoise. And I'm going to add one more just to show that you can have as many as you choose. C Shading Beauty, and I'm going to call this 50%. And I'm going to set the denoise amount to 0.5. Now when I render, I will get 3 versions of the image. My regular beauty pass, and I'm going to leave denoise set to 1. And then I'll get 2 other passes, C Shading Beauty 50% with 50% denoising, and C Shading Beauty No Denoise with no denoising. So I'm going to start that rendering, and then I'll be back when it's complete. Okay, so here we are after rendering. I have my standard beauty pass where I've left denoising to 1, and then I have my 2 render elements, C Shading Beauty No Denoise, and C Shading Beauty 50%. So now what I'm going to do is save all. I'm just going to save them as PNGs. And then I'll open those up in Photoshop. Okay, so let me take our 50%. I'll paste that on top of our no denoise, and then I'll take our fully denoised and paste that on top there too. And just close these. So here we have 3 layers. I have my fully denoised, 50% denoised, and no denoising at all. And what I'm going to do is pick on this photograph here, this painting here. This is the original texture map for it, and you can see it has quite a lot of detail and elements that we may not want smoothed out. Here it is in the no denoise and 50% and fully denoised. We might think that's a little bit too soft and even, and we might want to leave in, say, this 50% denoising. So, I mean, various options for how to mask out the layers. You can, of course, in Photoshop simply paint it in. To restore some noise into that painting. This basically is giving me the 50% layer being visible through my no denoise layer. So that allows there to be a little bit more noise in there, which may be more accurate depending on the texture. And you see if I turn that off, we can have the full no denoising in that area. Now for creating masks, of course, you can use object IDs and various other render elements too to automate that process. But this then effectively lets you control how much denoising you have in different parts of the image. Now I'm just going to jump back over to Max, and I'm going to do one last thing. I am going to save my fully denoised pass in the history, because what I want to do now, just for a demonstration, is I'm going to go back to my denoising, and I'm going to increase the radius significantly, and we're going to compare the difference that Denoise Radius makes. So I'm going to set off another render, and I'll be back when that's complete, and we'll have a look in the VFB history comparison to see the difference that Denoise Radius makes. And here we are with the scene rendered, completed with a denoising radius of 4. And let me just add this into the history. And then we'll set our new one up as A, our previous one up as B. And then you'll be able to see, let me just zoom in a little, in the painting especially, the higher radius here on the left has definitely smoothed things out more, perhaps even too much. We can see that some of the detail and brush strokes in the painting have vanished entirely. It has removed a little bit more noise, but we have begun to lose some of the detail. So that's the kind of consideration you'd have to bring in to picking your radius. You can see here again that it has the higher radius does remove more noise, but does result in a softer, perhaps blurrier look, and you'll have to choose whether or not that's appropriate for your scene. In this instance, I don't think it looks too bad. The extra radius has cleaned things up nicely, but it does, as you can see here, lose a little bit of detail. Here, the edge of the sofa is fairly well defined, but here it's rather soft. So that's a decision you're going to have to make for your scenes. Same here on the rug. We do have a cleaner looking image with the higher radius, but perhaps we're losing some of the detail. Probably, of course, better in this instance to add a few more passes, or indeed set a noise limit and work towards that. This was deliberately kept at a very low number of passes so that we could see the effects of the denoiser very clearly. And again, you can see here in the wood, although we have, with the higher radius, got a smoother result, it's perhaps begun to smooth things out a bit too much. A lot of our wood texture has disappeared and become very soft, and even our edges in between the different planks have begun to get softened up. So those are a look at what the Denoise Radius does. And the default of 1 is usually what you'll want to go for, but you can raise it, or you can indeed lower it to control just how much it removes noise, and with the caveat, with the warning that you may start to lose some fine detail if you start to raise that value up. So with denoising, people are finding you can raise your noise limit and let denoising take care of the remaining noise. People are using a noise limit of anything from 2 to 5% as good values, or indeed, if you're still using the passes approach and setting a number of passes, you can lower your number of passes, and savings and render time to get comparable quality without denoising. You can basically save 50 to 70% on render time when you use denoising and still get comparable quality to what you had, except it would take about 3 times longer without denoising. And the last thing I want to do is just have a look at a scene where you might use Remove Fireflies Only, so we can see that in action, although full denoising is what you'll need in most cases. But I'll just swap over to a quick sample scene and we'll take a look. So here's a quick scene I set up to look at the Remove Fireflies Only option. This is denoising at 0, and if I bring this up, you can see that the fireflies are faded out, but the rest of the noise is unaffected. And for comparison, I have here in the history, let's just store this one, this, set this to A and B. A is in fact the full denoising versus the firefly denoising removal only. So you can see that much of this noise, which you may think of as fireflies, little bright points of light, are actually regular noise, and the firefly noise was, as we can see here, if I clear the AB and go back to our render, you can see the fireflies are very specific items. These little bright points here are fireflies, but the rest of the noise in the image is not. may be useful sometimes, and you certainly have the option though if you want to do that. That would let you run passes to clear up the noise here, set a low noise limit, and then take care of any remaining fireflies with the Remove Fireflies Only option. And that's it for denoising. Thank you for watching.